Hi, I'm Cliff. I decided to make another video after a long hiatus away. I'm actually surprised at how popular my Are You Obsessed with Black People video was. I'm also surprised by a majority of positive comments, actually. So I thought I'd like to continue where I left off with that video and the other videos I made. The reason, I'll reiterate, the reason I say it's an obsession with black people instead of calling it racism is because in society we like to operate under the facade that racism doesn't exist, and if anybody actually comes out and calls something racism, we pretend like they're crying wolf. So I'll continue to refer as this issue as an obsession instead from now on. Today I'm gonna talk more about the N-word. I have another video about it, but I've since then I've come into more knowledge about the issue and had more thoughts about it, so I'd like to get that off my chest. A lot of black people get offended if white people say the N-word. And first, let's distinguish what the N-word is, because there seems to be a problem with that. If you say Nigger, to me, you're saying the N-word. If you say Nigga, you're not saying a bad word. What matters is the intent. And for some reason, I'm not trying to be a traitor or anything. I'm just using common sense. For some reason, black people tend to get offended when white people use the Nigga word in any sort of context at all, whether it be directed at them or not. And I'd like to just point something out. What matters most is intent. To me, and it should matter to most people's intent. It's common sense, really. It's not even about the word itself. But what matters is someone's intentions when they say something to you. For example, if I would walk up to a group of white guys and say, "What's up, dude? How's it going, bro? Hey, how you doing, man?" If I would use their slang at them in that kind of tone, in a mocking way, to mock or ridicule them, then they have every right to be offended. Not because of the words I used, but because of my intent. I think intent, most of the time, is very clear. So you shouldn't just get upset over a technicality. If someone technically calls you the N-word, you shouldn't get upset because of that. You should look at their intent. Because a lot of the times, intent is very clear, and when white people say the N-word, they're not always trying to attack you. And I think this is way too sensitive of an issue, and people just need to calm down. And also, there seems to be a fad online where people try to entice you into anger. It's called trolling, which is another slang word. Trolling. It's originated. I don't know. It's a quite old term. I don't really know where it started, but a troll is a fantasy creature. It's ugly. It's hideous. It's basically they say people like that are trolls or whatever. But it's a fad lately to try to entice people to anger. And I know most people don't deal with stuff like that. Most people don't deal with someone childishly trying to provoke them into anger, because we haven't had to deal with that since grade school. It's called bullying or picking on or whatever. We're adults here. We shouldn't have to deal with that. But sadly, that's what people will try to do. They will try to entice you to anger. It's called trolling. You can't let people entice you to anger over a small little word like that, especially when you look at their intent. Now, in real life, face to face, if their intent is to insult you, then maybe not even maybe, you do have the right to be angry, but you have to think about it. Is it worth it to be angry? It's more worth it to take the higher ground. You should always take the higher ground. But in online related things, you should always just ignore stuff like that. Regardless, you should always know the intent is to entice you to anger. But not always. I have a few white friends that they'll say both versions of the N-word to me. And they're joking. And I'm not going to, snap at them and be angry at them. My friend Mike, he's as white as can be, and he calls himself Nigga Mike. That doesn't offend me. It doesn't offend me at all. Because his intent is not to ridicule me or anything to do with me. His intent isn't bad at all, and that's what needs to be looked at. That's the important thing. I don't know if you guys watched the Boondocks, but the Boondocks did an episode called The S Word, and it's about a real story where this teacher called a student the N word at a school. You can look it up online. It's called Nigga Teacher. It's actually pretty funny. The guy wasn't racist. He was just stupid. He just said the word back to the teacher, or back to the student, because the student used the words all the time, and all of a sudden, just because the white teacher said it, it's offensive. But his intent wasn't anything racial or hateful at all. He was just, going back at him with it, which was stupid and not a wise choice, but not racist. But anyway, you got to look at the intent is my main overall point. People don't seem to understand that this is prevalent in all things. Intent matters in all things. It's not just about black and white. Black people aren't the only people that have to deal with stuff like that. It's common sense. For example, you see women. Women sometimes call each other bitches. Some say, "What's up, my bitch?" Or "Oh, I'm going out tonight with the girls," or the bitches, or whatever. But if a man were to say it to them, they might get angry. Do they have the right to get angry? Well, I think in this case, that's a curse word. So, it's automatically you're going to be inclined to think it's negative. But you should also try to look at the intent there too. You can't just, say, "Hey, bitch," and be like, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" It's common sense. So, it goes both ways. The eye of the, everything's in the eye of the beholder. So the person that's being called, the N-word or whatever, needs to look at the intent. But the person saying it also can't play stupid. You can't play dumb and pretend like you don't know what you're doing. You should always think before you talk. It's common sense. I'm not going to walk up, a nerd in high school isn't going to walk up to a bunch of football players and call them jocks or call them meatheads or whatever. It's just common sense. It's not just about black or white. It's not, just only, a racial thing. When you communicate with other people, you have to make your intent clear. And you also need to think before you speak. And you need to be aware. You need to be tactful. This is basic stuff when dealing with other people. I really shouldn't have to explain this, but for some reason people just think it's only a racial thing. Oh, black people get upset, blah, 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 or, white people are racist, blah, blah, blah. This is just common interactions with other people. And people just, they don't seem to understand that very basic thing. So yeah, you can't just go around just saying whatever you want, but at the same time, you can't just go around being offended by every little thing. You got to find a balance. You got one side has to look at the intent, and the other person has to be tactful. It's just, to me, that's common sense. And I guess that's all I really have to say on the matter for now. Thank you.